mentally. Aham, I. Trit paritaha, being thirsty. Bubhukshitaha, and hungry. Snatva, taking a bath. Pitva, and drinking water also. Hrade, in the lake. Nadyaha, of a river. Upasprushtaha, being in contact with. Gata, got relief from. Shramaha, tiredness. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: thus traveling, I felt tired, both bodily and mentally, and I was both thirsty and hungry. So I took a bath in a river lake, and also drank water. By contacting water, I got relief from my exhaustion. Translation with repetition: thus traveling, I felt tired, both bodily and mentally, and I was both thirsty and hungry. So I took a bath in a river lake and also drank water. By contacting water, I got relief from my exhaustion. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A traveling mendicant can meet the needs of the body, namely thirst and hunger, by the gifts of nature without being a beggar at the doors of the householders. The mendicant, therefore, does not go to the house of a householder to beg, but to enlighten him spiritually. That ends the short, wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are seeing this wonderful conversation between Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. And if you remember, in the fifth chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Vedavyas was feeling this despondency in heart, Narada Muni appeared. And one of the first instructions which Narada Muni gives to Vedavyas is, whatever you have written is jugupsitam, and it is mahan vyatikaram. This is condemnable. Mind you, Vedavyas had finished writing all 4 Vedas, Upanishads, yet he was feeling that lack of satisfaction in the heart, or the lack of completeness. And Narada Muni criticizes, condemns, not just chastises. It's not mild chastisement or rebuking. It is very severe chastisement, saying that all the work that you have done is condemnable because you have not directly glorified the Lord. And in connection with that, he talks about the glories of glorifying the Lord. And he goes on to talk about his own life, how he was born as a son of a maid servant. Bhagavatam, some of the things it gives in details, some of the things it leaves us to assume or understand on our own, based on our own intelligence. For example, it is mentioned in this chapter when Narada Muni talks about himself, that he was born as a son of a maid servant, but his father's name is not known. So you can understand how, he will have a father, but father is unknown. how unfortunate situation it might be for Narada Muni to be born as just a son of a maidservant, and how that difficult, unfortunate situation can become a fortunate situation in somebody's life is what he's trying to say or exemplify. Usually we ask people when we meet someone who's a devotee, how did you come in touch with Krishna consciousness? Because it is very inspiring, especially if someone whom we like or we appreciate or we are impressed by their character, conduct. We would like to know how did they come in touch with Krishna consciousness. Narada Muni is using his own example to illustrate how an unfortunate situation can become a very fortunate situation in life. So it so happened that this Bhaktivedantists, they came to their house and stayed there for 4 months. And as mentioned in Bhagavatam, Sakratsma Kunja, Narada Muni took the remnants of this Bhaktivedantists just once. He asked permission from them and took this remnants of this Bhaktivedantists once, and he would have put it in his mouth. What it did was it removed all his sinful reactions from his heart. Very interestingly, Bhagavatam says, Sakratsma bhunje tadapasta kilvishaha. Sakratsma bhunje. So just once taking that remnant of this Bhaktivedantists, kilvishas were removed from his heart, he developed a taste. So for many of us, we say prasadam is the first attraction, or maybe some flyer, some book, some devotee, somewhere, something happens, some kirtan. Somehow or other, this dormant Krishna consciousness, which is there in every one of our hearts, gets kindled, gets awakened. So for Narad Muni, so when his sins were eradicated by just taking this remnants for once, and he became purified, and that's how he became attracted towards this sages. The sages, the transcendentalists became attractive to me. And in that association, by the mercy of those great Vedantists, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna, and thus listening attentively, my taste for hearing of the personality of Godhead increased at every step. Many times we come across with people or devotees also who say, I have no interest in spiritual life. I'm like that, bro. What can I do? I'm having no interest. Well, the reason why we are not having interest in spiritual life is because we are not asking the right questions, or we are not serious enough to find out what is it that the spiritual life is all about. Our curiosity or our inquisitiveness is very low. That is why when Narad Muni was talking about his life, and he said that this Bhaktivedantist came in his life and he got this remnants from them and he developed a taste. And he also mentioned that when these Bhaktivedantists were about to leave, they imparted the most confidential knowledge to me. Jnanam guhyatamam yattat sakshat bhagavato ditam anvochan gamishyantah kripaya dinavatsalah. As they were leaving, those Bhaktivedantists, who were very kind to the poor-hearted souls, instructed me in the most confidential subject, which is instructed by the personality of Godhead himself. So they instructed him the most confidential knowledge, which is Bhagavat Anumoditaha, which is imparted by the Lord himself. And he said that later on he could meet the Lord in person. And he paused, he stopped there. When Vedavyas became curious to know how did he reach there? After this Bhaktivedantist left, what happened to him? And Prabhupada in the purport says something very interesting. He says that this process is technically known as Sadharma Pricha. As I said, when we ask devotees, what's your goal in life? People generally say, I want to go back home, back to Godhead. I want to have Krishna Prema, because these are all things which we hear technically, theoretically. But if our goal is really to go back home, back to Godhead, we will be curious to know the process. We will be serious to know the process, not just curious. We will ask questions related to that. Our life will revolve around that process. Unfortunately, most of the times it is not the case. That is why the word that is used, this is from Nectar of Devotion, Sat Dharma Pricha. Sat is the supreme absolute truth, which is actually the real beneficial thing for us, because rest all are Maya, that which is not truth, or just a covering. Sat Dharma. So there are so many dharmas, there are so many prescribed duties. But out of those prescribed duties and dharma, the most important thing is to inquire about Sadharma Pracha. If you remember in Bhagavatam at the beginning, in the second verse, Bhagavatam, it is mentioned that Dharma projita kaitavo atra paramo nirmat saranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu sivadam tapatrayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimba Parer Ishwaraha Sadyo Hridaya Varudhyate Atra Kritibi Shushrushvis Tatshanat. At the beginning itself, Bhagavatam says Dharma Projita. So Dharma Projita Kaitava. Kaitava Dharma is kicked out. Bhagavatam is not going to cheat us. That's the promise of Bhagavatam. And those kind of cheating religion is kicked out in Bhagavatam. Dharma projita kaitavo atro paramo nirmat saranam satam. So this dharma, parama dharma, which Bhagavatam is talking about, is meant for nirmat saranam satam, who's 100% pure in the heart, free from enviousness. Matsara is enviousness. Nirmat saranam satam. Srimad Bhagavatam, dharma projita kaitavo atro paramo nirmat saranam satam. Vedyam vastavam. This is actually factual. Vedyam, know that this is truth, this is real substance. Vedyam vastavam atra vastu sivadam. This is the most auspicious. Why? Tapatrayon mulanam. When there's grasses, Vedavyas is standing on a place where there are a lot of grasses under his feet. Right? If we cut these grasses, we ourselves would have experienced that they grow again. But if you unmulanam, if you are uprooting them, then they don't grow. Tapatrayo unmulanam. Every one of us who is tormented by this tritap, by this threefold miseries, it can get uprooted by coming in touch with this dharma, which is Vedyam Vastavam. This is absolute, pure, factual, spiritual substance. And it can uproot that. That's why this is Shivadam, very auspicious. That's why our life's goals and ambitions should revolve around this Sadharma Pricha. It should, the underlined central principle of life, no matter what we are doing, who we are in, what position of life we are in, which ashrama we are in, these are all details. But the underlying core principle should be Sadharma Pricha. That's why if you see in the beginning, when Sukadeva Goswami meets Parikshit in that August assembly, before he begins to answer the questions put forward by Parikshit, he first says, Varyan eshate prashnaha. Varyan, very nice, wonderful, these questions. Varyan eshate prashnaha, krito lokahitam nripaha, atmabit sammataha pumsam, shrotavyadishu yah paraha. Shrotavyadisu, we have so many things to hear in life. We want to hear. But of all those things that we have got to hear, paraha, the topmost, the highest, Shrotavyadisu yah paraha, of the things that we can hear, this is the topmost. And the question that you are asking, Parikshit, Varyan, this is great, this is amazing. Varyan esate prashna. Why it is great? Krito lokahitam nripa. This is actually going to be lokahitam. This is meant for the benefits of all the living entities. Krito lokahitam nripa and atmabit sammataha pumsam. Atmabit, who knows the self-realized souls, sammataha pumsam. They agree. They say that, yes, these are the real good questions. Another translation. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, "My dear king, your question is glorious, Baryan, because it is very beneficial to all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing." This is the prime subject matter. Parah, Shrotavyadishu Yah Parah. And it is approved by all transcendentalists. Atmabit Sammataha Pumsam. Similar thing we will find in Sutta Goswami when he begins to answer the questions of Saunaka Rishi. Munayoho sadhu prishtoham. So that was Baryan, here it is sadhu. Wow, this is awesome. Munayoho sadhu prishtoham bhavadbhir lokamangalam. That is lokahitam, this is lokamangalam. In the previous one, Sukadev Goswami didn't mention why this is lokahitam, but here Sutta Goswami says, Munayoho sadhu prishtoham bhavadbhir lokamangalam yat kritah Krishna samprashno. Because these questions that you are asking are related to Krishna. Yenatma suprasidati. These questions are lokamangalam. The answers to this is meant for the benefits of all human beings. Reason being, it will satisfy their heart completely. Yenatma suprasidati. O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. I have told this earlier. Sadhu, sadhu, Baryan. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and so are of relevance to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self. So Narad Muni, being asked by this wonderful Sat Dharma Pracha, again this questions related to Sat Dharma by Vedavyas, was very happy and goes on to explain further. So what is he explaining further? In today's verse we are seeing, if we see the title for today's verse, we have something called the necessities of life. If I ask you, what are the necessities of your life, Pratik?
Necessities are pretty much similar to any animals.
Okay.
One of the next stage, so it's like food, basically eating, sleeping, pretty much, and probably reproducing for the next generation.
Food, water. Okay. And that's all. Huh? DNA? Like okay, that's already inbuilt, right? DNA. So that's not really your necessity. Huh? Heart, oxygen. Okay. What about piano? Not necessary. What about Legos? Not necessary. What about iPhone, if any one of us have? Huh? Small cow. Actually, we spoke some of the necessities like food, water, or say oxygen. But really, are they our necessities only in life? What this verse is saying today, if we pay attention, very interestingly, how in life, because of this covering of the external energy of the Lord, we artificially create our material necessities and we work hard to meet those necessities. I want to bring to your notice a very interesting verse which Sukadev Goswami speaks in the second canto, second chapter, second verse. So Sukadev Goswami is telling the way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. The conditioned souls hover in dreams of such heavenly illusory pleasures, but actually they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. He's going to put forward some arguments, and to understand this, this is the beginning. I mean, every one of us, we are looking for how to make our life more comfortable. I can have better gadgets, faster ways of commuting, more money, more servants, more avenues for gratifying senses, to the extent that we believe if I get a chance to live in a heavenly kingdom where there are apsaras, servants, I just clap and somebody is there. Yes, kya hukum mere aka. And I tell, get a glass of wine or whatever, and some nice food stuff, and then I'll sleep. So this is what Sukadev Goswami is telling is the way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. In Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned as 2.44, 2.42. These are colorful words of the Vedic literature. What is that called in Sanskrit? Pushpitam Bacham. Yaimam Pushpitam Bacham. Pravadanti Avipashchita. So these are Pushpitam. These are very attractive words of the Vedic literature which bewilder the intelligence of people. Yes, it is possible. Maybe I can improve the standards of my life. Maybe I can improve my lifestyle. And it is possible by doing certain practices which the Vedic literatures are telling, and a person gets bewildered. Interestingly, the purport, Prabhupada says, the conditioned soul is always engaged in laying out plans for happiness within the material world, even up to the end of the universal limit. Not just Massachusetts, not just Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, US, planet Earth, the universal limit. It's always there are plans. These are called plan making. How I can be happy in this material world. Maybe the situation is not good here. If I go to some other place, which is here or maybe beyond this planet Earth, I will be happy. But Prabhupada is writing that he's not even satisfied with available amenities on this planet Earth, where he has exploited the resources of nature to the best of his ability. He wants to go to the moon or the planet Venus to exploit resources there. We know actually when the first time there was an expedition to moon, if you have seen the Apollo 13 or something, President Kennedy had said that this is a new frontier. This has opened a new frontier. I mean, we have exhausted or we have not explored what's there in moon, and now this has come to us. So if you are feeling that there is lack of resources, the resources are scarce, then we can go and explore there. Maybe there is better chance of living and better standard of living there in moon. So he wants to go to the moon or the planet Venus to exploit resources there. But the Lord warned us in the Bhagavad Gita 8.16. What is 8.16? Abrahma bhuvana loka punar avartinascha Arjuna. Mam upetya tu kaunteya punar janmana vidyate. Dukhalayam asaswatam napnuvanti mahatmana. Right, I think I've mixed up. But Abrahma bhuvana loka punar avartinascha Arjuna. Doesn't matter, even if you are able to elevate yourself to the highest planetary system. Again, you have to come down. Punar avartinascha Arjuna. But whereas somebody who's reaching Krishna, Dukkhalayam asaswatam napnuvanti mahatmana. He will be freed from this material world, material existence, which is described by Krishna with these two adjectives, Dukkhalayam and asaswatam. But the Lord has warned us in the Bhagavad Gita about the worthlessness of all the innumerable planets of this universe, as well as those planets within other systems. There are innumerable universes and also innumerable planets in each of them, but none of them is immune to the chief miseries of material existence. What are the chief miseries of material existence? Namely, the pangs of birth, the pangs of death, the pangs of old age, and the pangs of disease. The Lord says that even the topmost planet known as the Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. So then what to speak of other planets like heavenly planets? People even don't know that heavenly planets is in between. Even the topmost planet like Brahmaloka or Satyaloka is not a happy land for residential purposes. due to the presence of material pangs as above mentioned. Conditioned souls are strictly under the laws of fruitive activities, and as such, they sometimes go to Brahmaloka and again come down to Patala Loka, as if they were unintelligent children on a merry-go-round. If you sit on a merry-go-round, you go up and then you come down, you go up and then you come down. But actually you're just going and then again you're coming down. Like that, in pursuit of happiness, sometimes people elevate themselves to the Brahmaloka and again they come down to Patala Loka. But doesn't matter where you are going, you are not free from this pangs of material miseries, which is pangs of birth, pangs of death, pangs of disease, and pangs of old age. The real happiness is in the kingdom of God, where no one has to undergo the pangs of material existence. Therefore, the Vedic ways of fruitive activities for the living entities are misleading. One thinks of a superior way of life in this country or that, or on this planet or another, but nowhere in the material world can he fulfill his real desire of life, namely eternal life, full intelligence, and complete bliss. So we all are here in America with one of the underlined expectation of coming here is that we will be happier here. We can get better facilities of our, facilities for living, be it in terms of resources, be it in terms of knowledge, be it in terms of facilities. It has a promise. That's why we are here. So Prabhupada is saying that whether somebody goes from one place to another, or one country to another, or one planet to another, but the goal is same, to fulfill his desire of life, namely eternal life, full intelligence, and complete bliss. Indirectly, Srila Sukadev Goswami affirms that Maharaj Parikshit in the last stage of life should not desire to transfer himself to the so-called heavenly planets, but should prepare himself for going back home, back to Godhead. None of the material planets, nor the amenities available there for living conditions is everlasting. Therefore, one must have a factual reluctance to enjoy such temporary happiness as they afford. These are very, very striking things, because otherwise the pursuit of life will be in a completely different direction. What is expected of us and what we are busy in is very, very, very different. And Sukadev Goswami continues in his in the next verse, where he's telling that for this reason, the enlightened person should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life. This is the title for today. Should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life, which you yourself, told. Food, oxygen, maybe some water, clothes. In the world of names, for this reason, the enlightened person should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life while in the world of names. You know what is world of names? It says, while in the world of names. Yeah, so if you read the history book, you'll find so many historic personalities. They used to exist some point in time. They are factual, but their names are only there. So this material world is called the world of names. These are all these are all not real. These are just names. Okay, so and so, now I am so and so, I am here in this material world. After some time, only my name will remain. For this reason, the enlightened person should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life while in the world of names. He should be intelligently fixed and never endeavor for unwanted things. So it requires that intelligence. He should be intelligently fixed and never endeavor for unwanted things, being competent to perceive practically that all such endeavors are merely hard labor for nothing. Being competent to perceive practically that all such endeavors are merely hard labor for nothing. Then Sukadev Goswami says, so if somebody says, but I have to really work hard, I have to maintain my family, I have to take care of my other obligations and duties and expectations, don't you think it is right on my part to work hard? So actually this kind of question, when it comes, one should see from the scriptures and our Acharya's commentaries. One of the things which Prabhupada mentions is, we know this verse which comes often in Bhagavad Gita, quoted by Prabhupada from the life of Ambarish Maharaj, where Ambarish Maharaj first engaged his mind in the lotus feet of Krishna. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor. Vacham si vaikuntha gunanuvarnane. Actually, Ambarish Maharaj was completely engaged in devotional service of the Lord. But he was the king of the universe. One may question then, what used to happen to the subjects? He had so many things to do. How it used to happen? Prabhupada has commented in one place. It says that since Ambarish Maharaj was fully engaged in Krishna's service, Krishna used to take care of all the subject. Same holds true for us. What is that? One expands. Eko yo bahusha. Eko yo nityo nityanam. Chetanas chetananam. So that Lord has expanded. That Lord can take care of all the living entities which has come from him. Provided I have that conviction and I'm surrendering to the Lord and engaged in his devotional service 100%. Sukadeva Goswami says, when there are ample earthly flats to lie on, what is the necessity of cots and beds? We think, oh, we need to have this bed is this problem. I need some ergonomically designed, something orthopedically designed, or whatever it is. And there's a whole industry in that. When one can use his own arms, what is the necessity of a pillow? You don't need really. When one can use the palms of his hands, what is the necessity of varieties of utensils? You can eat in your hand. You don't need even fork and spoon. You just keep it and eat it with your fingers. When there is ample covering or the skins of trees, what is the necessity of clothing? Just take the bark of the skin, the skin of the tree or the bark, and then wear it. What is the necessity of clothing? Actually, these are all things which are given in the scriptures to make us think, really, these things are necessary in my life? One small problem in my house where there is something which is not right as per my so-called understanding of material, comfortable life, I want to change that. And that pursuit becomes so big that even the husband and wife starts working. They go to a far-off place from their children. They go to a far-off place from their parents. They are no more together. And all this because they want to achieve that material happiness, that comfortable life, which is temporary, which is illusory, which doesn't even last. So what is the necessity of clothing? Then, very interestingly, what Sukadeva Goswami says in the next verse is, are there no torn clothes lying on the common road? Do the trees which exist for maintaining others no longer give alms in charity? Do the rivers, actually the fruits in the trees, earlier, now probably there are, because Kali Yuga as it is progressing, you can find some trees which are cursed, which are growing in abundance, which doesn't have anything. No usable wood, no shed, no fruits, no flowers. But earlier days, it was not like that. The trees were laden with fruits. Do the rivers being dried up no longer supply water to the thirsty? Are the caves of the mountains now closed? Or above all, does the Almighty Lord not protect the fully surrendered souls? Why then do the learned sages go to flatter those who are intoxicated by hard-earned wealth? This question is a very interesting one, because we saw that, okay, so there is no need. If somebody is a transcendentalist, somebody who has understood his purpose of life, whose intelligence is fixed, who's pursuing self-realization, for him, everything is abundantly available in the nature. Why should he go to flatter to someone who's very intoxicated in hard-earned wealth? You go there, so many people bang the door, they don't even talk to you because they are intoxicated with this hard-earned wealth. I am so superior. In fact, if you see this purports of this chapter, 5th and 6th chapter, very, very deep purport, even though you see that, these are only 2-3 words. Just to give you one glimpse of how Prabhupada writes in this small purports, 1.6.4, if you see, which we have read, there is one line which comes. Consciousness of the material body means spiritual consciousness expressed through the medium of a material body. Read again, here again. Consciousness of the material body means spiritual consciousness expressed through the medium of a material body. If you didn't get it, consciousness of the material body, we are all conscious, means spiritual consciousness expressed through the medium of a material body. Spiritual consciousness expressed through the medium of material body. I want to give you an example. Many times I have seen this in India. I'm sure you would have also seen. Sometimes when you are going on the road, and let's say you are in a car, and in front of you there is a rickshaw, right? What do you tell him? Or what the car driver tells usually? How does he address? Horn. Okay, let's say horn is not working. Huh? Baju hut. Rickshaw. Hey rickshaw. Hey rickshaw. They don't even say rickshaw wala. Because rickshaw wala is now identified with the rickshaw. It's just inferior to me. Hey rickshaw. You just go, right? That's how they say, right? We don't say, hey, rickshaw wala, jo chala raha hai rickshaw, to side hat jana, main jaunga. Who says that? So the deep identification with the material thing, it is Prabhupada is writing, consciousness of the material body means spiritual consciousness expressed through the medium of a material body. We consider ourselves to be so popped up and so this thing, because I am going in a car, who's this fellow, rickshaw fellow, doesn't know how to, doesn't have any etiquette of road, rules and regulations and the laws. It's standing just, I just say, hey, rickshaw hut. So that's why then the question comes is, why then do the learned sages go to flatter those who are intoxicated by hard-earned wealth? What is the necessity? And that is Prabhupada explains this, because this is what is exactly mentioned in this verse today that we are reading. The renounced order of life is never meant for begging or living at the cost of others as a parasite. Because people use this word parasite. Parasite is something which grows on another living entity or another living body or organism. So the renounced order of life is never meant for begging or living at the cost of others as a parasite. According to the dictionary, a parasite is a sycophant who lives at the cost of society without making any contribution to that society. The renounced order is meant for contributing something substantial to society and not depending on the earnings of the householders. On the contrary, acceptance of alms from the householders by the bona fide mendicant. We saw this is called, in today's verse also Prabhupada is using the word mendicant. The purport, Prabhupada says, a traveling mendicant can meet the needs of body, namely thirst and hunger, by the gift of nature without being a beggar at the doors of the householders. So the renounced order is meant for contributing something substantial to society and not depending on the earnings of the householder. On the contrary, acceptance of alms from the householders by the bona fide mendicant is an opportunity afforded by the saint for the tangible benefit of the donor. In the Sanatana Dharma, actually it is for the benefit of the householders. If you remember in the first canto, 4th chapter, Sukadev Goswami, it is mentioned when the description of Sukadev Goswami is given, he used to go to the householder's house and wait there till the time they finished milking the cows. Godohanam, that much time. If they give, they give. They don't give, they don't give. But he used to go to give this opportunity for these householders who are deeply entangled in the complicated mesh of their own karma to do this devotional activity for the tangible benefit of the donor. In the Sanatana Dharma institution, alms giving to the mendicant is part of a householder's duty. And it is advised in the scriptures that the householders should treat the mendicants as their family children and should provide them with food, clothing, etc. without being asked. So this is the power of giving alms. Actually, it is beneficial for both, because the householders who are caught up in their materialistic goal of life have no understanding, have no idea about spiritual realization, which can be given by a transcendental mendicant. A mendicant Paribrajaka Acharya, when he goes and asks, he enlightens the householders, and the householders also by giving something, which apparently is not needed, but giving that something also help that mendicant. Now, if we see the verse today, the translation was, thus traveling, I felt tired both bodily and mentally. Parishranta Indriya Atma. Indriya is used as bodily here. Why Indriya is body? Indriya means senses. But why Indriya is translated as bodily? Body is full of senses. Okay. Hmm? Body is controlled by the senses. Senses are actually the instruments of the body. How many senses we have? 10? Okay. Huh? Okay. Okay, Pratik.
Sense of sight, sense of smell.
They are called the instruments of knowledge, which all of you are trying to say. Sense of sight, okay. Smell, hearing, touch, tongue, yeah, taste. So these are the senses of knowledge. Sorry, instruments of knowledge. They are called Gyanendriya. Then there is Karmendriya, which are instrument of action. What are they? Prabhupada uses this word, instruments of knowledge and instruments of action. Instruments of action are? Tongue is speak. Yeah. Smell is not there. Not there. That already is counted in instrument of knowledge.
Hands, legs.
Hands, legs,
Mouth, breathing.
mouth, speaking.
Hands, genitals.
And his genitals, yeah. These are instruments of action. So this instruments of knowledge and instruments of action together make the body work. That's why this Indriya is sometimes translated as bodily, and Atma here is referring to mentally, mind. Atma can refer to body, can refer to mind, can refer to even the super soul. So thus traveling, I felt tired both bodily and mentally, and I was both thirsty and hungry. Trit paritaha bubukshitaha. And then what happened? Snatva pitva hriday nadya upasprashto gatasramaha. So I took a bath in a river and also drank water. By contacting water, I got relief from my exhaustion. Upasprashta gatasramaha. Shrama is all hard work, labor, tiredness, and he got relieved from that by just touching the lake. And Prabhupada spoke in the purport that a traveling mendicant can meet the needs of the body, namely thirst and hunger, by the gifts of nature, without being a beggar at the doors of the householders. The mendicant, therefore, does not go to the house of a householder to beg, but to enlighten him spiritually. And we saw from the instructions of Sukadeva Goswami. To conclude our time together, I want to speak about this verse from Bhagavatam, very interesting verse. This is in the 4th canto. It talks about Parishranta. We saw that Parishranta, how one can get relief when the Indriyas and the body, because Indriyas, the senses also can get tired. Mind also can get tired. Bodily tiredness is easy to overcome. But mental tiredness and the tiredness of senses, how do you overcome? Here is an example from Bhagavatam. My dear king, in the place where pure devotees live, following the rules and regulations, and thus purely conscious and engaged with great eagerness in hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in that place, if one gets a chance to hear their constant flow of nectar, which is exactly like the waves of a river, one will forget the necessities of life, namely hunger and thirst, and become immune to all kinds of fear, lamentation, and illusion. This is a very important thing. Bhaya soka moha, that one that is, one can get free from this. See, the necessities of life, when we are talking about, and we saw how artificially we can increase and enhance, because we want to improve the conditions of life and the comforts of life, and we can create those things and be busy. But in that pursuit, we get bhaya, soka, and moha, lamentation, fear, and illusion. Right? But here is a chance. There is a river which is flowing, and by coming in touch with that river, that water, one can bring a cessation of all these problems. And what is that river? Where is it available? My dear king, in the place where pure devotees live, following the rules and regulations, and thus purely conscious, engaged with great eagerness in hearing. Great eagerness in hearing. and chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In that place, if one gets a chance to hear their constant flow of nectar, which is exactly like the waves of a river, one will forget the necessities of life. The purport, when we are eager to hear, Shravana Vyagra Chetasa, when we are eager to hear with attentive ears, Gadha Karnais, then we are free from all anxieties, Kuntha, and the whole atmosphere becomes Vaikuntha. This is the meaning of the word Vaikuntha. When we are eager to hear with attentive ears, we are free from all anxieties. Saritaha means river. And in the above verse, Narada Muni is very nicely comparing. This is actually instruction of Narada Muni to Prachina Barihi. He is comparing the constant flow of nectarian Harikatha from the mouth of pure devotees to that of waves of river. So the Harikatha which comes out of a pure devotee's mouth, they are like the waves in a river. And when we are extremely tired and exhausted, the touch of waves of water refreshes us and enlivens us. This is the quality of water. Even if you are physically very tired, fatigued, you've gone around and there is hot sun and you've done something and you come back and you take a nice cool shower. The touch of water, it reduces the exhaustion and tire. Similarly, this Sarita of Harikatha from the lotus mouth of pure devotees refreshes our body and mind. Usually, body is constantly troubled by hunger and thirst, and our minds are troubled by fear, lamentation, and illusion. But when we are in touch with Krishna Katha, we become immune to all physical and mental problems. This is a very big secret. You see, so his Prabhupada is counting that there are bodily problems and there are mental problems. When we are extremely tired and exhausted, what is it? Usually body is constantly troubled by hunger and thirst. Just khana hai, pina hai, khana hai, pina hai. You want to eat at regular intervals and there is drink, you have to satiate that. Minds are troubled by fear. Kya hoga, kya hoga? Kal wo chala jayega, something will happen, my source of income will reduce, they'll remove me, some fear, lamentation, I could not do this, I could have achieved this, my children are not worthy, they didn't get proper education, some kind of lamentation and illusion. Everything looks topsy-turvy. Kya hai this world? Where am I? What is it? No proper understanding. But this all can vanish when we are in touch with Krishna Katha. We become immune to all physical and mental problems. To conclude our time, if you remember the song which is sung by Govinda Das, which we sing, Bhajo Hure Mana, Sri Nanda Nandana. There is one line that comes there, two lines. Sita Atapa Bata Barisana Edina Jamini Jagire Bifale Se Binu Kripana Durajana Bifale Se Binu Kripana Durajana Chapala Sukhalaba Lagire. It's a very beautiful verse, very beautiful. If you just meditate on the meaning, and Prabhupada has given very wonderful purport to this, where Prabhupada actually is highlighting work only for minimum necessities. Do not overwork. In the purport, Prabhupada writes, if you see in Vedavyas, this is there, he gives the example of a criminal in earlier days whose hands and legs are tied and he is taken to the midst of a river or a water body and is dunked in. And when he is suffering, he's just gasping for breath and not able to breathe, immediately he's pulled out. And he feels the sigh of relief. Wow, oh, this is such a relief. But then immediately he is again dunked in. Right? So Prabhupada says that the happiness that we experience in this material world is temporary, and it is a relief period between period of two distresses. It is so flickering, and we are still working very hard for that. How? Sita Atapa. Don't care for the snowfall. Don't care for the scorching heat, bomb blast, whatever is happening. Bata Barishana doesn't care. What? Tsunami, cyclones, torrents of rain. You just name it. I don't care. I have to work hard. I have to do it. I have to be happy. Somehow they are struggling. Somehow they're, people are ready to take any risk. So one may say that if I don't work hard, then Prabhupada, actually, this is where he says about Ambarish Maharaj, that what will happen, who will maintain my family members, and Prabhupada gives the example of Ambarish Maharaj. If we engage in Krishna's service, Krishna will take care of us. The scriptures and acharyas advise us that simply for material comforts, we should not devote time more than it is absolutely required. That means we don't increase our bodily necessities. We should not increase the artificial necessities of life. Have a simple living. Our life should be conducted in such a manner that in any circumstances, we should be able to pass life. We require some eating, we require some sleeping, shelter place, and we require some sense gratification, and we require some protection from enemies. We should work to live and not live to work. But we work hard day and night. E dina jamini jagi. Whole day and night. Working normal time, overtime, public holiday. I'll get some 1.5 times salary. I'll get some 2 times salary. Get some more money. So this kind of false illusory thing. And what is the end goal for that? Chapala sukha labha lagire. It's a flickering happiness. So the instruction which Govindas is giving, do not waste time for this flickering happiness. Everybody is working for that chapala sukha, flickering, momentary enjoyment. And for what? Because our body or expansion of bodies, these are all temporary. For this people, we are working hard. The word that is used is kripana durajana. So either people who are miserly people or wicked people, for their pleasure, we are working hard. Prabhupada actually gives one example in that. Suppose I am constructing a skyscraper. And if somebody asks me that, why are you building so high building? What is the reason? And if I answer, just to set fire into it. The man will laugh. You are spending so much money for this building for setting fire? Our present activities for the body is similar to this example. For whom we work, kripana durajana, wicked and miserly people. So sometimes our boss or superior may appreciate our work, may be very happy, but the very next moment, if there is some problem, then he'll blame us and he will not, he'll not protect our position. This is how the material world is designed. But how much we are working hard. So the so-called material society, friendship, love, etc., they are actually outsiders. They cannot give actual spiritual advancement of life. But if we are engaged in the service of society, friendship, or love, nationalism, socialism, etc., and our engagements are various, but that is bifale. Bifale means that is without any result. The result will be that I create a certain type of mentality in order to protect the so-called country, society, family. And at the time of death, I will have to accept a body according to my mentality. So people are accepting so many abominable means to carry on this business of society, friendship, and love, so-called. And the result is that he is developing a certain type of mentality which is not human. And the result will be next life will be forced to accept a body according to that mentality. The kripanas for whom we work will not give me any intelligence, any enlightenment for the real need of my life. But still we are engaged in the service of such durajana, outsider. If you remember earlier, we had seen this purport of Prabhupada. The mundane wranglers waste time with archaeological excavations without searching into the vital necessities of life. They are wasting time. So many other things, but without searching into the vital necessities of life. So the conclusion for today, as we saw in this verse, is to understand what are the real necessities of life and how not to artificially create these necessities of life and entangle us in this material world. And how, even if, we have problems or, we are going through this bodily and mental problems, just by coming in touch with the waves of the waves which are coming, like the river-like words which are coming out of the pure devotee's mouth, in that waves, when we come in touch, how it can purify, it can satisfy, it can give us that, relief from all physical and mental problems. If you remember in first canto, first chapter, there is a verse Yatpada samshraya suta munaya prasamayana sadyah punanti upasprashta swardhuni apo anusevaya. Very beautiful verse. Yatpada samshraya suta. There are those pure devotees of the Lord who are samshraya, who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Yatpada samshraya suta munaya prasamayana. And they are always absorbed. Prasamayana is absorbed in the devotional service of the Lord. Sadyah punanti upasprashta. The word upasprashta is used in today's verse also. Coming in touch. Coming in touch with this pure devotee of the Lord even once can purify the contaminated goal of life. Whereas, taking bath in Ganges, it takes many, many times. Swardhuni apo anusevaya. Whereas the waters of the Ganges can sanctify only after a prolonged use. So, in this wonderful conversation that we are seeing between Narada Muni and Vedavyas, we should learn how we should not get carried away in this unnecessary necessities of life which we have created and forget the goal of life. The implicit understanding, the goal of life should be about how I can be serious about self-realization. Sat dharma pricha. If that we remember, then automatically everything else will fall in place. Any questions, any comments?
There was a thought that was running in my mind with regards to does Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita mention anything about an ideal state in terms of collective consciousness? So what I mean is, does it describe a situation where all the beings on the planet become conscious? Then what happens? Is that a potential possibility? Does that signify the means to an end?
So you mean to say if everybody becomes aware of his own position, constitutional position, what will happen to the world or what?
Exactly. So is such an ideal state described in any of the texts?
Yeah, ideal thing which never exists in life, but ideal thing is when you are conscious of who you are and understand your true position with respect to Krishna, then you go back home, back to Godhead. So if you see Bhagavad Gita, it talks about two kinds of people, Nityavadha and Nityamukta. So there is a large population of living entities who are there in the Vaikuntha Loka along with the Lord who are Nityamuktas, eternally liberated. But there are some people like us who have proven that we are Krishna unconscious and have come to this material world to enjoy independent of Krishna. That's why we are Nitya Baddha. And this mentality to enjoy independent of Krishna continues and grows. And as it continues and grows, then we continue to accept different bodies. These are all bodily concept of life. But when we realize our position and understand the frivolousness of this pursuit, or the what do you call the it's not a factual pursuit that we are doing. When we get to realize that, then we correct our course, we change the path, and then we can go back. However, one thing one may ask like, so, this verse that we read today, it is talking about minimizing the necessities of life. But actually somebody may have already so many things. He's already, because of, whatever his past karma, he has got some money, he has got this thing, and he has been given certain things based on his past karma. Should he give up? And what about someone who does not have anything? So some bare minimum things he has. Should he not aspire to have more things? Where is the line that has to be drawn in this minimum necessities of life? There is one thing which Prabhupada says in connection with Gajendra and the crocodile. There was this elephant who was caught by this crocodile. And there it is mentioned, Gajendra or the elephant he's an animal of the land, whereas crocodile is the animal of the water. So his strength increased there. And Gajendra's strength diminished. Like that, every one of us, we've got different capacity or ability to handle the material necessities. A grihastha may have some different ability. A mendicant or a renunciant is supposed to have a certain another this thing. We should not, if the Gajendra goes to the land, goes to the water, then it became problem for him. So we should not go to the territory of another one where he has got some necessities based on whatever his positions and aspire to be like him. So what I'm trying to say is the material necessities for different living entities could be different. It need not be one same, 2 pieces of clothes, 2 chapatis, and 1 something like that. Not like that. You can't define one this thing for. But at the same time, don't aspire to become somebody else, because when you're entering into the territory of another thing, then the influence of Maya in there will be much more stronger. Okay, no other questions. We will see this wonderful dialogue which is happening between Narada Muni and Vedavyas in the next session. Do join us and see actually we have to pay attention to all the minute details of Narada Muni's life, because he's narrating it himself, so that we can learn. We can learn how we can do the course correction in our life and develop that taste for Krishna consciousness, which we don't have right now because of this covering, because of not touching the spiritual substance. And how by seeing what all he did and how he could achieve to that position of being a transcendental associate of the Lord and chanting the names of the Lord always is very, very uplifting. It's an ideal role model to have, actually. We'll stop here. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jagat Guru Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.